Good evening, ma'am.
Okay, hello everyone. So we'll start with the
Good evening, ma'am.
cases. Good evening. So these are like the cases, few of these we already discussed, and some are new cases also. So this is the entire list that you can refer for constitution. So name of the topic I have mentioned, and also for some I have also mentioned the article also. So accordingly you can see like articles would also be there. So like this articles are also there for which article you can refer to this case, and also topics are mentioned.
Yes, ma'am.
And also one more thing, take for example you are like reading one particular case, okay, so from here you can read, it's like a summary of the case and what was basically held in that particular case. So what you can do is that, take for example you are like reading this particular case only, so what you can do is that apart from reading what is there, you can just copy paste this like name of the case and look for the entire case in uh, India Kanun or somewhere. There you would get all the like different articles that for which you can refer this case. Take for example for this particular case you would get like article 14 also, you would get article 21 also. So like that you can mention the articles also, so that for those like 3 4 articles you can mention one same case only. It would be easier for you, right? Like remembering the facts, what was held, it would be easier if you are referring to like one case for 3 4 articles rather than giving like 3 4 different cases, because anyways these are like landmark judgments only. So if there are like 3 4 articles for one particular case, maybe you can like write down the articles along with name of the case, and then for those articles you can refer the same case only. So that thing you can do for all the different cases that are there. Maybe you would get for some, maybe one article is there, for some 2-3 articles are there. So whatever articles are there, you can just take a note of those articles, and then accordingly you can read these articles. Or also maybe you can copy paste that in your notes also, like in all those articles that you have. So the first case that we have is with regard to preamble. So whatever we already discussed, that I have highlighted in purple. So these cases we have already discussed while studying preamble. So this was basically a case of 1960. So what happened is that after partition, like boundaries were like demarcated between India and Pakistan. And to do that, one person was been appointed. So this person, he was asked to do all the demarcation, just in order to ensure that it's not like a biased thing, that the like better places are given to India or not so good places are given to Pakistan or anything like that. So they wanted a person who is not having that much knowledge about India's geography, and the person has not like visited too many places and something like that, so that he can accordingly divide the places in an unbiased way. So he was given this task, and how he will divide the territories, like take for example, now it's a very big country, so how he will demarcate the places, he will demarcate based on the thanas. So different thanas, he would say that whatever area is coming under this particular thana, it would go to this country, it would come to this country. So like that, demarcations would be done. And also there was one commission that was set up, it was the boundary commission. So accordingly all the things were done, and the partition was done, that these areas are coming under India and these are coming under Pakistan. So accordingly there was one like thana, Berubari thana. What happened is that he gave this thana to India, but it was not mentioned in that written document that was prepared regarding the partition, regarding demarcation of boundaries and all. It was not clearly mentioned that this Berubari thana belongs to India. So later on what happened is, because it was not written in that particular like written document, it was not present. So Pakistan got a chance to claim over that particular thana, that some parts of it also belongs to them. India was also claiming some parts belong to them. So both the prime ministers, what they did is that prime ministers of both these two countries, they made an agreement, and they accordingly decided that, okay, fine, these like portions of this particular Berubari thana would go to Pakistan. They are having a valid right over it, and this remaining part will remain with India. So accordingly, there was like an agreement between the two prime minister, and then they settled that particular like territorial dispute that was there. Accordingly, this like territory was divided between India and Pakistan, but it was done by prime minister only. Parliament, they did not ask the parliament to make some laws, regulations, did not take basically approval from parliament or anything like that. So just the prime minister decided, and both of them made this agreement, and the matter was settled. So accordingly, it was questioned whether like prime minister is having that much authority or not. Who is giving prime minister that much authority that he can just give away some parts of India to some other foreign country? So this agreement was basically challenged, that whether this agreement is valid or not. If you see the different like provisions regarding states, you would see that parliament has been given this power that they can like make changes with regard to any territories of any particular state, with regard to creation of new state, with regard to abolition of some states, and all of that. But from where prime minister is getting this power that he can give away some part of India to a foreign country? So this agreement was basically challenged in this particular case, whether it is valid or not. Then it was said that we need to like make some changes with regard to first schedule of constitution, just to make the changes that has taken place with regard to boundary of West Bengal. So accordingly all of those things were done. And so in this particular case, basically it is related to preamble. Why it is related, this part I have like highlighted. So it is that preamble is not giving powers to any authority or any limitation to anyone. So it is, preamble is what basically they said is that it is just an introduction to the constitution. It's not even a part of constitution. It is not having any proper provision. It is not giving any powers to anyone, not giving any limitations to anyone. Just it's an introduction. Just it is telling us what all things are there under the Constitution of India. So it was said that it is basically telling us about the vision and aspirations of the founders. It's not a part of Constitution, and we cannot make changes to the preamble also. So preamble we cannot make changes to it because it's not even a part of Constitution. It's just an introduction that we are having. So you can remember this case, that Ray Berubari Union case. So this thing is important, that why preamble we cannot make changes, because it is not part of Constitution. It is just an introduction, only telling us about the vision and aspirations of the founding fathers. If it is telling India is democratic, that they want to make India democratic country. So all the other provisions regarding that would be there under some part of Constitution. If they are saying we want to provide like equality, liberty, or other things, preamble is not doing anything. Preamble is not providing equality also. Preamble is not providing us any liberty also. Neither it is imposing any kind of like limitations or restrictions. What it is the preamble is just telling us that we are having the concept of liberty or equality or whatever it is, but different provisions are under different parts of Constitution only. So preamble is only an introduction, nothing more than that. So we cannot make changes to that also.
Ma'am, this is the only case no, which says that preamble is a part of Constitution.
Which one?
The Berubari case, ma'am.
No, it was Keswananda Bharti case, that preamble of the Constitution is part of India.
Okay, so Berubari say
yeah.
it's not a part.
Yeah,
and
it's not.
Keswananda says it is a part.
Yeah, it is a part. Okay, so this was the first case. One second. Where is the document? So if you see that preamble document there also, you would get basically the main things I have written there, that Berubari case, it was not a part of Constitution, and so it cannot be amended. Why it's not a part of Constitution? Because it's not giving us any authority or limitation. It's just an introduction telling us what were the main visions and aspirations of founding fathers. So it's not amendable. And in case of Keswananda Bharati case, the concept of basic structure doctrine was also developed. And in this case, it was held that preamble to Constitution is a part of Constitution and it can be amended under Article 368. Take for example, we are making like, if preamble is part of like an introduction to Constitution, that is basically summarizing the entire Constitution. So if we are making some changes in the Constitution, like in some parts of the Constitution, we are adding some different rights, some different privileges or things like that, obviously we need to make those changes to preamble also, just to ensure it is summarizing the entire like things that are there in Constitution. So in Keswananda Bharti, it was said that preamble is a part of Constitution and preamble also can be amended. So under Article 368, we can make changes to any part of Constitution. Only thing is that we cannot change the basic structure of Constitution. So for preamble, you can remember these two cases. Berubari, we cannot make changes because it's not giving us any authority or it's not imposing any limitations on anyone. And it is just telling us about visions and aspirations of the founding fathers. So we cannot make changes to it. But in case of Keswananda Bharti, it said that under Article 368, we can make changes to any part of Constitution, including the preamble. And what we cannot do is that we cannot change the basic nature of Constitution, but other than that, we can make changes. Also, these two cases also you can refer if there is a question. Take for example, if there is a question on preamble to Constitution of India and marks is more. So you can write these two cases obviously. that in one case we can make changes, in another one it said we cannot. Also you can like refer these two cases also.
Ma'am, if the question comes like till what, like how many times it has amended, so
Till how many times preamble has been amended?
yes, ma'am.
That again depends. See, if it's like 2 marks or something, you can just mention one time it's amended. These are the things that were there. These are the changes that are been made. Also in case
One
one
property was removed, ma'am, right? If I'm not wrong.
which one?
Right to property is removed.
Like
So
you are asking about preamble or what?
no, ma'am, I'm asking a preamble only. So what I'm asking is, was the property was mentioned there?
No, it's not. It was not mentioned. So like basically like fundamental rights and all in detail they have not mentioned, right? They just mention equality, liberty, justice, like that only they are mentioning. So property specifically it was not mentioned. So if like question is coming for like preamble marks is more, then you can maybe also mention that S.R. Bomai versus Union of India, it was said that secularism is also a basic like a basic feature of Indian constitution only. If India is secular, then we also expect like that for all the like representatives and all the other people, their actions are also secular in nature. All of that also you can mention if it's for more marks. You can also mention DK Basu case, the concept of liberty came, what all rights we should give regarding justice and all. We should give a lot of rights even to prisoners when they are like when they are inside jail, then also they would be having certain rights and all of that. So that thing also you can explain if marks is more. If not, you can just refer to these things. And also like in detail I have written what was the case, how it happened, what all things were discussed. So you can read this entire thing, and depending on marks only you can decide what you need to write. So basically this is the important part, what was held, and the situation and all you can just read for your own reference. But I don't think that much you would get like time to write in exam also. So accordingly you can decide what all things to be written. So these are the 4 cases that I have mentioned with regard to preamble. And also these cases somewhere or the other we are again getting it right under part 3 and all we have explained. So here I'm just mentioning regarding liberty or justice, you can mention regarding secularism, this like case came, that part you can refer. So next is regarding part 1. So with regard to the different states and all, what all cases are there. So here like not much questions are being asked. So you can just like remember that Beruvari case, you can also refer in these things also. That like validity of this particular agreement was questioned. That we need to make changes in first schedule of the constitution also. Because first schedule is mentioning regarding the different states that we are having and also its territories. So what happens is that we need to make changes to that also. If we are making changes in any kind of like territory of any particular state, if we are giving some part of India to some foreign country, then we would also need to make changes to those things. So that part also you can mention. Also it is relevant for article 1, because article 1 is talking about like name and territory of India, right? That India is what it is, the union of states. So if we are making changes in the territory of some states, then we need to make those changes in first schedule also. So like that, this case is also relevant for article 1 and also for article 3. So for article 3 also you can remember this case, that is talking about formation of new state, alteration of areas, boundaries, or names of existing states. So whatever provisions or powers are being given under Article 3 to the Parliament, what these powers are basically, within India only Parliament is having power, right? That within India, if there are 2 different states, it can maybe some parts, it can join with a different state, it can change names, it can create a new state and things like that. But nowhere it is giving power to anyone to, you know, like give some part of India to some other foreign country. So like that, it is also relevant for Article 3 also. So part 1 and 2, not like much questions are being asked anyway. So these are the things that I have put for preamble part 1. Next is part 3. So is this part clear till here?
Yes, ma'am.
So next is regarding part 3. There are a few cases. So first is judicial review, Article 13 judicial review. So these cases also we have already discussed. Marbury versus Medicine. This is the case where the Supreme Court of United States, for the first time, it recognized the concept of judicial review. So American courts are having this power to strike down any laws or statutes or even any action of the government that would go against the provisions of Constitution. So this power has been given to judiciary that they can see whether any actions, decisions, laws made or any statutes made by the legislature, whether they are violating any parts of Constitution or not. In case they are violating any parts of Constitution, then courts are having this power to strike down those laws, regulations, orders, etc. So this concept was introduced in this particular case. So I have mentioned this. So you can so you can remember this case that this is the first case where the concept of judicial review was introduced, and then later on this concept was also borrowed to the Constitution of India. And in India, L. Chandrakumar versus Union of India 1997, this is the first case where this concept was like recognized also by court. So in this particular case, 42nd Amendment of Constitution was challenged, and these two articles regarding, so basically what happened is that Parliament made this particular change, and they said that there would be certain areas or certain things where jurisdiction of all the other courts would be excluded. So who will be having jurisdiction basically is that some tribunals that were set up by Parliament. So they said that these are few things where only these tribunals would be having jurisdiction to take up a case and to decide on this particular case. No person can go to like Supreme Court or High Court to challenge this matter. So in this particular case, what was held is that a person can go to Supreme Court or High Court. This power has been already given under like writ jurisdiction. So can Parliament make an amendment and say that for this matter, a person cannot go to Supreme Court or High Court challenging this particular, like it may be any decision taken under those particular legislations or anything like that. So what was held in this case basically is that if Constitution is giving us some powers to High Courts or Supreme Courts, then that power cannot be taken away by Parliament by passing some kind of a legislation. So Parliament cannot say that for these particular matters, Supreme Court and High Court would not be having power, but only those tribunals should be having that power that they can take a decision on those matters. So that cannot be done because Constitution itself is giving this power to Supreme Courts and High Courts. So that power cannot be taken away by Parliament. And people have this particular right that they can go and challenge those legislations or things like that. So power of High Court and Supreme Court to test constitutional validity of legislations can never be excluded. So it was declared as unconstitutional that these legislations or for these matters, High Court or Supreme Court will not be having power because Parliament has already given that power to Supreme Court and High Court. So this was L. Chandrakumar versus Union of India. So these two cases are relating to judicial review, and this other case, it is regarding the doctrine of severability. So judicial review, as in Supreme Court and High Court would be having this power that they can judicially review any any administrative actions also. It may be some kind of legislations also, whether those are valid or not. So they can see whether the decisions or any kind of actions taken by those bodies are valid or not. They can judicially review those decisions. Doctrine of severability. So anyone remembers doctrine of severability from Article 13?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, what was that?
Ma'am, it basically means that if any law is considered or has a role in any particular situation, so it depends on the situation and the law. Like the entire law will not be used or focused at that particular situation. What they'll do is they'll be using a certain part of that law and which is necessary for resolving the issue, and it's not necessary that they'll be using the entire each and every element of that law. If I'm not wrong, this is the concept behind severability.
Yeah. So regarding Article 13, what it basically is saying is that all the laws or anything that we are having in India, those things should be in accordance with provisions of Part 3, right? It should not violate whatever rights or provisions are being given under Part 3. So if there are some laws or some legislations are there that is violating any part of Part 3 of the Constitution, we would not like straight away say that this entire legislation is like void, or this entire legislation will not be applicable. What we will do is that we will try to apply this doctrine of severability. Doctrine of severability as in whether we can separate the provisions or not. If there is one particular legislation called as like Preventive Detention Act, whether we, and one provision is violating some like fundamental rights given under Part 3. So what we will say is that if a case comes before court would not straight away say that okay fine, this entire legislation will no more be like applicable. What they will do is that they will try to separate out those provisions that are violating Part 3 of Constitution. If they can separate those provisions and still the act is making some sense, then remaining act would be still valid, it would be still applicable. Only those one or two provisions that are going against Part 3, that part would be considered as like not applicable from that moment, but the remaining part would still be valid. So this is what doctrine of severability is, that if we can separate, or if we can like separate out those provisions, those only would be invalid. But if after taking out those provisions this act is not making any sense, then maybe the entire act would be invalid. So this is what doctrine of severability is, and it was applied in this case. So basically this person was arrested under Preventive Detention Act, and he said that one of these provisions like section 14 is only going against Part 3 of the Constitution. So rather than declaring this entire legislation as invalid, what court did is that court only held that particular section as invalid. Why? Because it was possible for the judiciary to separate out that one provision, still the act was making some sense. So this is what severability is, that if we can like take out one part or one provision from the legislation, still it is making some sense, then we would only consider that part or those different parts only invalid, other parts would still be applicable. Next is doctrine of eclipse. So doctrine of eclipse, anyone remembers?
Ma'am, it says that if any of the law which is violative of fundamental rights, if like void ab initio, that is like at a very main stage, if it is void, then it is unenforceable, and it will be unenforceable, and it will be remained in that condition only.
Okay, not like void of initio, but yes, it will remain in that position only. So if
And basically the thing, the part which is not being used, so for that particular moment or a particular time period, it is considered as an
dead
standby mode. It is
yeah.
not used, but that doesn't mean that they will completely abolish that part, or they will take out that clean that part of the law. That will be used whenever needed in near future.
Yeah, in future.
Means it will not be dead permanently, but but
for
it
the
will
time being, it would not be applied.
So fundamental rights will like overshadow this. That's why it is known as eclipse.
Yeah.
That fundamental right will take over, and these act will be like, it is not dead, but it is not that much in use. So whenever required, it can come into existence.
Yeah. So in case of doctrine of eclipse, it basically says if there is one legislation that was like that is in operation and we come to know that okay, this is violating some part of fundamental rights, what we will do is that we will like fundamental rights would overshadow those parts or that particular legislation. But if any point of time, if we are making some changes in fundamental rights and we see that this act is again like, you know, like we can again make this particular act applicable, it will not violate any part of fundamental rights, then at a later stage we can again make use of that particular legislation. So for the time being it would be overshadowed by fundamental rights, but later on if we are making some changes in fundamental rights, then again we can apply that particular legislation. So this is what happened in this particular case also. It is regarding application of pre-existing laws. Pre-existing as in before constitution came, this law was already existing. So it was CP and Berar Motor Vehicles Amendment Act of 1948. One of the provisions was that state government is having this monopoly that they can take over motor transport business in exclusion of other individuals or groups or other communities. So state government can completely like run this business. They can have their monopoly over motor transport business. This act was applicable before Constitution of India came and it was properly applied also. But when Constitution of India came into force, it gave us this fundamental right. So it gave us this fundamental right under Article 19(1)(g) that we have the right to carry forward any business, profession, practice, etc. So this particular legislation was challenged that it is violating this right. If we are having this right to enter into any kind of business or business, etc., then why are we not allowed to, start motor transport business? So for that time being, what happened is that, that this particular legislation was considered as like invalid because it was violating Article 19(1)(g). So basically Article 19(1)(g) overshadowed this particular legislation, that part that was talking about state government having monopoly over motor transport business. But later on, we made some changes in the constitution by first Constitution Amendment Act, that we inserted clause 6 under Article 19. So it gave power to the government that they can have some have monopoly over some business. If government wants for some businesses, they can do it themselves only in exclusion of all the normal people, individuals, groups, etc. So again this act became valid and again this act became applicable, because after this particular first Constitutional Amendment Act, this legislation was not violating any part of part 3 of the constitution, so again it became applicable. So this is basically that for the time being it would be overshadowed by fundamental rights. If later on there are some changes in part 3, again we can apply this particular legislation, it would still be valid.
Ma'am?
Yeah.
The earlier part you have mentioned there in Article 13, especially for doctrine of eclipse, that these are discussed on the application of pre-existing laws. So is doctrine of eclipse not applicable on post-constitutional law?
Post-constitutional also, for some legislations would come court, like people would go to court challenging it. Take for example those like National Judicial Appointment Commission, that was also challenged being constitutionally invalid, because constitution is talking about independence of judiciary, it is saying something else. Many constitutional amendments were also challenged. So for that also it may be applied. So in this particular case it was regarding pre-existing laws. But again there are many like constitutional amendments also, there are many legislations also which are also been challenged, that this particular provision or this particular part of constitution, this legislation is like violating. After constitution came also, there are some legislations which may violate any part of like constitution or any provision of constitution. So on that ground also many laws, many orders, etc. are being challenged, that this is like unconstitutional, it is not following the provisions of constitution. That also can be done.
Ma'am, as this Bikaji case is very like, it's kind of a landmark case for Dr. Eclipse. So if you don't mind, can we have a case where it says that, doctrine of eclipse for the very first time applicable for post existing law?
Which
Constitutional law.
post-constitutional law, which is like the first case where it was applied,
Yes,
or
yes,
what?
doctrine of eclipse.
Okay, so it's like you can refer Article 13 clause 2 also. So clause 1 is saying like pre-existing laws, it should not be like violating part 3. So again, clause 2 is saying that state shall not like make any laws that would be going against part 3 of the constitution. So it may be some laws that are made by made by parliament or made by any state legislatures that are violating part 3 of the constitution. For that also it may be applied. For many constitutional amendments also it has been applied. So you can refer that under Article 13, it is talking about both the laws, that pre-existing law should not be violating. Even though it was in existence, those parts would be overshadowed by part 3. And in case of like post-constitutional laws also, it is a responsibility that is being imposed, that there should not be some laws or legislations or any kind of orders or anything that is violating violating part 3 of the constitution or any part of constitution for that matter. National Judicial Appointment Commission Act, that was challenged, being violative of the provisions that there should be independence of judiciary. There are again there are laws. Take for example Article 14 is giving us this equality. Then Article 21 is giving us this right to life and personal liberty and all of that. In Menka Gandhi case, that particular legislation, it was again challenged that this is taking away our right. So there are many legislations which are being challenged that you can refer under this thing also. Like 13 clause 2 also, there will be many legislations and constitutional amendments that you can refer.
Okay, ma'am.
And all those in take for example that Kesavananda Bharati case, then Golaknath case. So whatever those land related laws government brought, those were also like after constitution came only, right? After constitution came, they realized that maybe we need to take like land from jamindars. They are having a lot of land with themselves. So those legislations were brought. Again, those legislations were also challenged, saying that it is taking away a right that constitution is giving us. All those cow slaughtering and all of those slaughtering related laws, those also are being challenged on the same ground only, that after constitution is giving us these rights, like government is taking away these rights from us. Parliament is making some legislations after constitution came, and then they are taking away these rights. So those legislations also you can refer. So in this sheet only you would be getting many cases where some of the other legislation is being challenged. So most of them are like post-constitutional thing only. So all of that thing also would come under this, that being like on this ground only it was challenged in the court.
Okay, ma'am.
Next is Article 14. Article 14 regarding equality before law and equal protection of law. So this is Chiranjit Lal Chaudhary versus Union of India. Basically, in this case, what was held is that all persons or things that are similarly situated, that should be treated alike. Whether we are giving some kind of privileges or we are imposing some kind of liabilities, whoever or whatever things are in the same situation, similarly situated, they should be treated alike. So equal should be treated equally and unequal should be treated differently. In this case, a legislation which was subject to equally rules concerned legislation violated for this. So in this particular case, what happened is that there was one legislation that was making like some kind of differential treatments to people who are in the same situation. So what Article 14 is basically talking about is that whoever is similarly situated, only those people should be treated alike. It's not like someone else is situated in a different position, that person is also treated similarly to rest of the people. So it may be like one person is differently situated, we would consider that one person also as a different class and we would treat him differently. So there cannot be one legislation that is treating like different same people in different ways. Similarly situated people also, it should not be like treating differently. So this was basically regarding a legislation with regard to some waiving company. So you can just remember what was held in this particular case. So one legislation was there with regard to waiving company. So what happened is that under that particular legislation, similarly treated like industries were also treated differently. So in this particular case, it was challenged being violative of Article 14, that there cannot be a legislation that is treating similarly situated people differently under their rules or under their provisions. And it was also said that even a single person may be treated as a class in himself. If there are like 50 people and there is one person who is like in a different situation, so even that one person also we would consider him as a class, and we can have like differential treatment for that particular person because we want to provide equality. So it does not matter how many people are there who are in a different situation. It may be one single person also for whom we may have to introduce some kind of different provisions or different treatment. So this thing you can remember, that even a single person may be treated as a class. This is what was held in this case. And also this particular thing, that all persons who are similarly situated should be treated similarly. And even if it's one person, that also we can consider as a class, and we can treat him differently under Article 14 just to provide equality. So all these cases, right, you can go through the detailed case under Indian Kanun. You would get all the different articles that are there, and accordingly you can take a note of this, and you can refer the same cases for different articles. Especially for part 3, you would get many of the things under this. Next is State of West Bengal versus Anwar Ali. So in this particular case also, there was one legislation, West Bengal Special Courts Act 1950. West Bengal Special Courts Act 1950, and under this there was one provision, section 5 clause 1. So this particular clause was giving power to government that they can, they can take a decision that what all cases they want to send to the special courts. So special courts were been established under this legislation, and government was given this authority that they can decide which all cases are to be sent to this particular special court. So when a case goes to this particular like special court, the rights of those people, like they would get limited rights with regard to their, like hearing and other things. So in this particular case, 49 people, they were charged with various different offenses, and they were sent to this particular special court under this notification. So government was not, like very transparent on based on what all grounds they are sending or they are deciding which all cases to be sent to these special courts and all of that. So it was like different for different crimes, these 49 people were charged. So without any like clarification or without anything, these people were sent to the special courts. So this particular like legislation was challenged, saying that government is not disclosing properly on what grounds these people are being sent. So there should be equality. They should, like, if a person is convicted of some crime and someone else is also convicted, they also should be given similar kind of treatment. If one person is going to the regular court enjoying a lot of rights, other people also should be enjoying. And if they are not enjoying, then there should be a proper justification. Government should properly disclose in this notification itself that why these people are being sent to this special court and not others. So that clarification was not there. So this particular case legislation was being challenged under Article 226 by way of writ. So it was basically challenged, saying that it is giving arbitrary power to government, because government is not having any kind of like It is not following any kind of guidelines that is saying that for, like for these type of offenses, cases would go to special court, or for these type of offenders, cases would go to special court, maybe for habitual offenders or someone like that. So nothing was specified. So it basically is giving arbitrary power to government. Whichever case government wants, government can send. So it was challenged, saying that it is giving arbitrary power to government, and there is no proper guideline or anything that government is following in terms of like classification of offenses or anything like that. It is just sending whomever they want to these special courts. And also this procedure, which was less advantageous than the ordinary process. So whomever were sent to these special courts, they were enjoying some lesser rights as compared to the regular court process. So also it was challenged that this process is also not same that they need to go through. So obviously there has to be clarification as to why they are being sent to these special courts. And also there is no policy or guideline for exercising this discretion. So government was not following any guidelines, or there was no any clear-cut policy. They were basically arbitrarily deciding on this particular thing. So these are the main 3 grounds based on which this legislation was being challenged. So this act was held violative of Article 14. Why? Because it was application of different laws to persons similarly situated. Whoever are convicted of some kind of offense, whoever has been, like the person has been there, all of those persons are similarly situated. Some kind of allegations are there against those persons. So these are similarly situated persons. Then why are them, like why these people are being differently treated under this particular legislation? So in this case, it was said that equality does not mean that laws must be universally applicable to all the persons who are not by nature or any circumstances in the same position. So different classes of persons require different treatment. In order to pass the test of permissible classification, 2 conditions must be fulfilled. So it is not like whoever, like against whomever there is some kind of allegation, they should be treated similarly only. Maybe there may be different kind of treatments, but it should be properly classified. That maybe like habitual offenders are being sent to special courts, or people who are been, like if the offense is having punishment of more than 7 years or something like that, then they would be sent to special courts. So like that, there should be classification. So court said that we are not saying that laws must have like universal application, or whoever is in the same situation, they should be treated equally. But what we are saying is that there should be reasonable classification with regard to that. What is reasonable classification? It should fulfill 2 different grounds. So 2 different things it should fulfill, then only we can say that there is proper classification, and properly we are like dividing them into 2 or 3 different categories. Firstly, it is saying intelligible differentia. That means distinguishing persons or things that are grouped together from others left out of the group. And second is differentia must have rational nexus. So what basically they are saying is that, fine, people are been, like there are allegations that these people have committed some kind of offenses. So if there are 100 people, we are not saying that laws should be similarly applicable to those 100 people. It may be different, but how it can be different, we need to classify it based on these two different grounds. If these 2 different grounds are satisfied, then we can say that this legislation is valid. If these 2 different grounds are not been satisfied, then we can say that this classification is not a valid classification, it's arbitrary in nature. So what these classifications are basically, it is intelligible differential rational nexus. That means why we are classifying, to that there should be a proper justification. If we want to classify people who against whom there are some kind of allegations, maybe we can say that this person is a habitual offender, so we are categorizing him in this particular group. This person has committed some offense where punishment is like more than 10 years, so we are classifying him in this particular group. this person has committed an offense which is just, you know, like a civil nature, so we are classifying him in this different group. So there should be a proper you know, like a proper reason based on which we are classifying that person. It should not be like just we are making some 3-4 classifications. There should be a proper justification to this particular thing. So this is what intelligible differentia is, that we are classifying some people in this group. Whoever is left out, we are classifying him in this other group. And similarly, we are making the classification. There is some kind of reason based on which we are making the classification. Secondly, it is saying about rational nexus. That means there should be an, you know, like a relation between object that we want to achieve and what we are doing. If we are making like 3 different classification, there should be a proper rational nexus. We cannot just make those 3 classifications. We should be able to justify also why we are making that classification. Maybe we can say that this person has only committed a crime of civil nature. His case, you know, like should be decided quickly so that he can roam freely without any charges. Maybe this person is a habitual offender, so he needs to be, you know, like properly, the case needs to be seen and everything like that. This person has committed an offense where punishment is more, so this is how the case should be treated. So like that, there should be a proper like relation also, why we are doing a particular thing and what is the object that we want to achieve. So there should be a connection in between those 2 things. So this was what was held in this particular case. Is this part clear? Intelligible differentia and rational nexus. Is this case clear?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So this first case, it said that similarly situated people would be treated similarly, differently situated people would be treated differently. Even if it's one single person who is like differently situated, that person also we can consider as a class and treat him differently. Next case is State of West Bengal versus Anwar Ali, where this particular legislation was challenged, saying that it is making classification, but there is no valid ground, justification, guidelines or anything based on which this classification is done. It is giving arbitrary power to government. So it is not like a valid thing to do. It is not providing equality. To provide equality, there should be 2 things that it must fulfill. First is intelligible differentia. There must be a justification, or there must be a proper reason based on which we are making the classifications. And also there should be rational nexus. There should be a connection between those 2 or 3 different things. Take for example, if like government is saying that for, you know, like for different kind of, take for example, for different kind of like judicial service exams, there would be different like criteria. Why different criteria has been fixed? Because there is a reason to it, right? Because these people would go to this particular court, these people would go to a higher court, these judges would go to like high court or Supreme Court. So obviously we need to make differences in terms of their qualifications also. So this is what is intelligible differentia, that there is some reason based on which or because of which we are making the differences. And rational nexus means there should be a connection. Why we are making these differences? Maybe we are saying that, okay, high court or Supreme Court judges should take up appeals also. Maybe they should be more experienced as compared to lower court. So for high court and Supreme Court, a person cannot just directly become a judge. He need to practice for a few years and all of that. Why this particular thing is done? There is a rational nexus. There is a relation between the thing that we are doing and with the object, right? We are making this difference because we want that in appeals people get proper justice. So what this is that there should be a connection why we are doing it, and why we are doing, there should be a proper justification also. If anything is fulfilling these 2 like tests, if anything clears these 2 tests, then we can say that, okay, fine, this particular like discrimination or this particular like differences that it is making, it's proper differences only. It is having some kind of justification for doing it. So these 2 tests should be qualified in order to be a valid like difference that a legislation or an order has been making. So first case, you can remember that it is even single person can be treated as a class. Similar people would be treated similarly. Second case, it is saying that it cannot give like arbitrary power. It must fulfill these two tests, that intelligible differential, there should be a rational, there should be a reason behind doing this thing also. If these two things are satisfied, it's a valid thing only. Next is E.P. Royappa versus State of Tamil Nadu. So in this particular case, again, there was a new dimension to Article 14 that guarantees against arbitrariness. When an act is arbitrary, it is implicit that it is unequal, even unequal both according to political logic and constitutional thing. So later on, what people realized is that it is not sufficient that one legislation is fulfilling these two tests. Maybe one legislation can pass these two tests. There is some like rationale behind doing it. It is proper classification only. But even then, what happens is that it may be giving some kind of like arbitrary power. So if there is some kind of arbitrariness, it will not be valid. So it gave a new dimension to Article 14, and it said that there should be a kind of guarantee against arbitrariness. No one should get this arbitrary power that they can just take a decision with regard to it. So everything should be treated equally, and even after passing this test, court may still see whether it is giving some kind of arbitrary power to government or not. So for E.P. Royappa, you can remember that it is like it gave a new dimension to Article 14. These two tests may not be enough in all the different cases. Maybe somewhere still there is some kind of arbitrariness even after a legislation passes these two tests. So that thing also should be like seen properly. Now next is Menka Gandhi versus Union of India. So this case also we discussed while doing Article 21. So for Article 14 also it's there. So in this case, Supreme Court held that Article 14 requires observation of principle of natural justice, including the requirement of reasoned decision.
Ma'am?
Yeah.
I just wanted to know, you were talking about arbitrariness. So in these cases, what does arbitrariness means? Like, you know, what in all things we can say that, okay, this is arbitrary. So is it something which is not a good law, or what? Like, what all will consist of arbitrariness of an act?
Okay, so arbitrariness as in this case was basically like a person was been appointed on some position, then some new post was created which was not there under any legislation or order. So basically the department was using their own power to create a new post, to appoint him in some kind of like temporary post. Take for example, there are like different classifications, right, in government job. Take for example, some grades are there. Okay, just take an example that there are some grades in some kind of a department. Okay, like A grade employees are there, some are like B grade employees, like that. In A grade also, take for example, there are like five different designations. Just take this as an example. Okay, this is not the real situation. So take for example, under A grade also there are 5 different designations. Take for example, we have the vice VC also, we have the registrar also, and some other post also. So now salaries and all the privileges given to this A grade employees, it's same only, but obviously there is difference in terms of their like designation, right? So what arbitrariness is saying is that like government, that particular department cannot decide. That particular department cannot say that, okay, you are acting as a VC, you are getting the same like salary, same privileges only. What we are doing is that we will downgrade you and we will make you like a professor. We will make you a professor. You are still getting the same kind of privileges, you are still getting the same kind of salaries, but we are downgrading you. So this is what is that, this is what is arbitrariness, that arbitrarily they are downgrading a person. Maybe they are saying that you are a permanent employee, we are making you temporary, but you would be entitled to same kind of privileges, same kind of benefits only. So those things they cannot do arbitrarily. They cannot just take a decision. There should be like a proper thing, proper authority or something like that. If they are doing any particular thing, there should be a justification, there should be a reason. In this particular case also, take for example Menka Gandhi, they just took her passport without saying for what reason they have taken it. That is also arbitrary. You are not saying for what reason you are taking it, or you are not even providing a proper reason for not disclosing the fact. If you cannot provide the reason, proper justification, you can at least say that for this particular reason we are not disclosing the reason. If you are not even doing that, that means your action is arbitrary. So the arbitrariness may differ in various different cases. Arbitrariness basically means without anything you are having like the ultimate power to do anything. There is no justification, there is no proper reason or anything like that. So if you take this example, it was held that natural justice also should be a part of this thing. You should give your, like, there should be proper reasoned decision. If you are taking a decision, there should be proper reasoning based on which you are taking the decision. If you cannot disclose the proper grounds, you can at least say that this is why we are not disclosing it. If you cannot disclose why her passport was seized, you can at least say that it was for maybe security of nation or maybe for this particular purpose why it is being done. But you cannot just do it arbitrarily. You cannot just do it using your power, using your ultimate power, whatever you want to do. There should be a proper like relation or proper justice.
8 o'clock.
Proper justification to it. So these were like different legislations only. This was why people were being sent. There was no justification, there was no principle or anything that was followed. It was arbitrary because government is using their power like unlimitedly. In this particular case, the person was like, new post was created, the person was appointed in this post, then again some other post. Why it has been done, under which act this particular like government department or authorities are getting that power, not nowhere it was mentioned. In this case, our passport was seized without giving any reason. Why it was done, nothing was mentioned. So all of those would come under arbitrariness only, that government is doing or department is doing whatever they want to do. So this Menka Gandhi case, again, it was her passport was seized and it like requirement of reasoned decision. So what court basically said is that wherever possible, whenever possible, you should give the reasons. Like passport authorities are being given this right that they can seize passport and they may like refuse to provide justification. But whenever or wherever possible, they should try their best to provide the reasons so that the other party also knows why it is being done. So they cannot just make use of their power arbitrarily. They should give proper decisions. So reasoned decision also plays a very important part. Even though they are being given this like power not to disclose the reasons, they should at least let the other person know why it is not being disclosed. So this is saying that in a legislation, there can be provisions. So in this particular case, what was being held is that there can be one legislation where, you know, like some provisions are applicable to someone, some are not applicable to some classes. Like this particular like passport legislation that was there, it said that for some things the department may disclose the reasons for you know, like seizing of passport. In some cases it may not be like disclosed. So there can be those things, but it should not be like arbitrarily they are exercising that power. So it should not be like a subject matter of discretion. So it is mandatory for that particular department. Even though sometimes department is given that liberty, department should try to use their power in a proper way, not like arbitrarily that they are doing. This is another case related to Article 14, Kerala Hotel and Restaurant Association versus State of Kerala. So in this particular case also, it was regarding imposition of some sales tax on sale of cooked food. Like some restaurants were charged more, some were charged less, depending on their like price of their food. So in this particular case also it was challenged, and what court held is that the scope of classification permitted in taxation is greater, and unless classification is made can be termed as, like, if it is very clear that whatever classification government is making, that classification is like completely like arbitrary or invalid, in that case only court would take notice of it. Otherwise, some things are there which are left to legislative wisdom. That means with regard to tax and all, legislation is taking some decisions because they are using their own mind, their own power, etc. So some things would be less like left to legislative wisdom. They cannot question that why you are charging more from this particular restaurant, why you are charging less from this. If it is like properly clear that it is arbitrary, only in such cases only court would ask a question. Take for example, for income tax also you would see like different groups are there, right? That people from these to these many much group would be having this. So court would not question every single thing. If there is like complete arbitrariness, if it's very clear decision is not proper, in such cases only court would take a decision. Take for example, if income tax act tomorrow says that people below 5 lakhs would be paying like 20% of income tax, and people below 20 lakhs of income would be paying 21% of income tax. So in this case, it is like clearly it's not a valid classification, right? People below 5 lakhs are paying to 20% income tax, and this is only 1% increase. So in such cases, only judiciary would take a notice of these things. When it is completely arbitrary, it's well evident. Otherwise, judiciary would not just look into every single matter, because some things are left to legislative wisdom. There can be different types of taxes imposed on different kind of different types of classes also. So is this part clear? Article 14, these were the cases.
Yes, ma'am.
So first is, it is said even single person can be treated as a class. Similar people should be treated similarly, different people differently. In this case, it was said that even though there are classifications, it should not give arbitrary power to government. There should be proper like justification, and also there should be intelligible differentia only. Government cannot just take a decision based on like their arbitrary power. EP Roypa again, it was said that like even though these two tests something is passing, there may still be a chance of arbitrariness. So what we will see is that whether it's an arbitrary decision of government or not, apart from these two tests. Menka Gandhi, again, it was said that some things somewhere like department or some kind of executive authorities may be given some kind of extra powers, but they should not use that arbitrarily. Wherever possible, they should give proper justification or proper reasons for their actions also. Kerala Hotel and Restaurant, it was said that in every single matter, judiciary would not, go and question. Some things are left to legislative wisdom also. So legislation can also do the classifications. Every classification court would not question unless and until like it's well evident that it's arbitrary.
Ma'am, for 14, we can also recommend Mandal Commission case, no?
Yeah, Mandal Commission also. Next is regarding Article 15. Regarding Article 15, Indra Swani versus Union of India. So in this particular case again, an important even sole factor of Germany's social backwardness and poverty can alone be. So in this particular case, it was said that caste can be an important or even the sole factor to determine social backwardness of any like group of people. But poverty cannot be a reason, or poverty cannot be a ground based on which we are like giving reservation to a certain group or certain class of people. So this judgment was now we are having, right, that based on poverty also we are having, for forward classes also we are having reservation. So in this case, it was firstly said that poverty cannot be a ground, but now it is a ground. For that, forward classes are also being given. So you can remember for Indraswamy case, if it was held that caste can be an important factor, but poverty cannot be the only factor based on which reservations would be given to people. And also it was said that while like court is making some kind of special laws, or while court is making some kind of special provisions for like betterment of SC or ST people, like educationally backward people, educationally or socially backward classes, right? SCs or STs, they should not like ignore the remaining sections. So rest of the society should not be ignored while they are making those legislations. So for this case, you can just remember that caste can be the sole or the important factor, but poverty cannot be. But now we are having based on that also. Next is M.R. Balaji versus State of Mysore. So in this particular case, what happened is that there were like various different classifications, like SCs also there were reservation, STs also there were reservation, backward classes, more backward classes. So there were more reservations that were like given, right? That these many seats would be reserved for these people, these many seats would be reserved for this. So ultimately what happened is that 68% of the seats only were reserved for different like different groups of people. So in this particular case, this matter was raised that 60% of the seats only were reserved for different like groups of people, and only few seats were left for like merit. So regarding Article 15 clause 4 and 16 clause 4, there must be some reasonable limit, and court also put a reasonable limit. So they said that it should not be more than 50% of seats that like the department is like that the department is reserving for different kinds or different groups of people. So it should not be more than 50% of the total number of seats that we are having. So this rule was being followed, but then there is this exception, like Tamil Nadu is having their own legislation and also Rajasthan is having. So you can mention that for M.R. Balaji versus State of Mysore, there was like this limit was fixed that there should be 50% of reservation only, and the rest of the seats should be open for merit. Also, this is another case, Nilima versus Dean of PG Studies. So this case came because of like a girl from higher caste. She married a boy from who belonged to ST, scheduled tribe. So after marriage, she wanted to apply for masters. So she applied like she wanted to apply under the ST category. So it was said that a like girl from higher caste marrying a boy from lower caste would not get the benefits of that particular like reservation. ST benefits she would not be entitled, because this particular like reservation thing, right, to what category a person belongs, it is decided at birth only. So whatever caste she was there, like whatever reservation policy she was entitled to, that only would be applicable. After marriage, she would not be entitled to all these benefits of scheduled tribe. So basically she was not entitled to this benefit. So after marriage, she sought admission for MS course under the reservations for ST tribe. The court held that she is not entitled to get the benefits of reservation available. So you can just remember for this particular case that people belonging to higher caste marrying people belonging to lower caste, they would not be entitled to all these reservations and benefits. It would be decided based on their like birth only. At the time of birth, whatever it was, based on that only they would be getting. Ashoka Kumar versus Union of India. Here this concept of creamy layer was raised, and like a limit was been fixed. So it was realized that a lot of people in India come under OBC category. So if we are giving reservation to all of those people, some are, you know, like some are having all the benefits and everything, and they do not need those benefits also. They are into good positions, they are not economically backward, socially backward, or things like that. So we need a concept called creamy layer, where we would fix a certain kind of like an income for an year for an entire family, and based on that we would say that these persons would be like excluded from the benefits of OBC category, other backward classes category. And this is not like fixed, so it can be changed by National Commission for Backward Classes. So there are many notifications that they have issued changing this limit. I think it's like 5 lakhs or something at present. So they keep on changing this amount, and whenever they want they can increase this limit also. So whatever is prevailing at that moment, based on which creamy layer category would be decided, and accordingly those people would be exempted from the benefits. They would be same like forward class people only.
Ma'am, is this case the same Ashok Kumar Thakur case versus state of Bihar?
What happened in that case?
Ma'am, I think I read that case. Just 1 minute.
Okay.
Ma'am, I was reading that creamy layer thing itself. So it also says that Ashok Kumar Thakur versus State of Bihar and others. But here the citation is 1995 SC 403. And here also it talks about that creamy layer among OBCs cannot qualify for job reservation under its interpretation of Mandal Commission recommendation. So is it the same case? Like, I think this case is again taken further. That's why the citation is 2007, which you have given.
Yours is what year?
Ma'am, it is Ashok Kumar Thakur versus State of Bihar and others, 1995, 5 SCC 403.
Okay. Maybe it came to Supreme Court after that, again, that the decision was taken. Because like limit was put, right? So many people objected to this limit also.
Okay.
And also this, like, I think this limit is now like 5 lakhs or something. So what people were saying is that like whatever this limit is, right? I forgot this amount, but whatever this is, right? That is also coming under like taxable income only. So they were saying if people below this particular income are coming under like non-creamy layer, they are like poor people, they should be given some kind of benefits from government. Why are they like required to pay tax then? So like that also there are many things. So maybe this case only came before Supreme Court with regard to that. So for this you can just mention that this criteria or limits or any other things that may be there, it can be like defined or it can be changed from time to time by National Commission for Backward Classes.
Still the criteria is 50% only for reservation, or it has brought down? Because 50%. It was quite high when that case was there.
Yeah, so these two states like Tamil Nadu and Rajasthan, it's different. For others 50% only, and then again an addition was made like 10% for that economically backward. So it was said that it's not like coming under that 50%, it's something else that government is giving by constitutional amendment. So that would be like a separate thing that we will have. Next, this case is also with regard to that only, like marriage with a lower caste guy. So in this particular case, what happened? Kendriya Vidyalaya Sangathan. So in this particular case, this lady, she applied for the post of primary teacher, and during that time she got married. So after applying, what she did is that she submitted the scheduled tribe quota certificate. So this certificate was issued by DC only of that particular district. It was issued by the DC only. So she got the certificate after marrying this guy from a lower caste, and she applied for this position and she submitted her like scheduled tribe quota certificate also. So she was working there. Based on this certificate only, she got the like job under ST category. She was working there for like 15 years. After 15 years, there were like some promotion or things like that. Someone complained to Kendriya Vidyalaya Sangathan that she is not ST actually. She actually married some ST person, but she is not ST. She is from some forward class only. So she should not be entitled to the benefits. So KVS, they also sent some like notification to her saying that you are not like entitled for this ST thing. So like, you know, like give us proofs that you are, because she only submitted that based on her husband's thing, right? So they said that you can, you know, like submit your ST document based on your father's reference, that from birth only you were ST, otherwise you would not be entitled to those benefits. So she too got this certificate from DC office only. So just for clarification, she like approached the commission also, that what is the provision, am I entitled or not. So the commission also said that you are not entitled, because from birth whatever benefits you are getting, that only you would be entitled. You would not be entitled to getting any benefits under any reservation or anything. So she like challenged this in front of court, and what court said is that she was like working for 15 years, and during this period KVS did not like question anything or anything like that. After 15 years, like she has already crossed that age, right? She cannot apply for new government job or anything like that. So after 15 years, if KVS is questioning her with regard to the certificate, and also it's not like she submitted like some fake certificates or anything, it was properly issued by DC only, who is authorized to issue such certificates. So it was said that it would be like not a justice for her, because for like 15 years she was working based on that certificate, which was properly issued by the like proper authority. So it would not be like a proper thing to do, that we would ask her to resign from that particular position. So court basically ordered that what you can do is that maybe she would not be entitled for the benefits of ST in the coming days, but whatever position she is, if she is working as a primary teacher, she would continue to work in that same position. You cannot ask her to resign from the job, but she would not be entitled to any other benefits under the ST category or anything like that, regarding promotion or whatever it is. She would not be entitled to those benefits. But that particular order that asked her to resign, that particular order was like considered as invalid. That cannot be done. And it was 124th constitutional amendment that inserted that 10% reservation for economically backward classes, like for that general category who are economically poor. For that 10% reservation thing was added, and it was by making changes to the constitution only. So it was apart from the 50% ceiling that is imposed. So these are the cases with regard to 15, 16. And then for 19 again, you can refer this Bijoy Emmanuel case. We have already discussed this case, right? If you remember, the national anthem case. Yeah, so that same case you can even refer here also, that article 19 is not like absolute right, we are having some restrictions, but what happens is that the imposed so there can be some restrictions under this, like clauses 2 to 6, right? There can be restrictions on fundamental rights based on like security of India or whatever it is. So those restrictions should also apply. If we are putting some restrictions on people, there should be a connection also. It's not like we are just thinking that it might violate and then we are putting restrictions. If there is any kind of restrictions imposed on any freedom that a person is having, then there should be also a connection between those restrictions and the right that a person is having. If a restriction is put based on public order or security of the state or something like that, there should be a connection also. It's not like they are just imposing the restriction. So same thing was also held in this particular case, right? Those children, they refused to sing the national anthem, but it was not affecting any of like they were not disrespecting the national anthem or anything like that. So nothing was affected under clauses 2 to 6. So basically it was held that they should be like readmitted to school and they would have again the same rights and everything. Then again, this is Indian Express newspaper, Bombay Private Limited versus Union of India. So in this case, it was said that under Article 19(1)(a), if we have the right, like freedom of speech and expression, how we will express ourselves? Only when we are informed, we have proper information, we have proper things, then only we can express ourselves. So it was said that when we have this right to, like freedom of speech and expression, we also have a right to receive information. Unless and until we receive information, we would not be able to enjoy this particular right. So government was imposing taxes on the newspaper. So basically this newspaper employees, workers, their shareholders, approached the court saying that they are heavily taxed by government, so they need to increase price of newspaper. So what will happen is that many people may not be able to afford buying newspaper and getting information, but this is a fundamental right that we are having to receive information. So maybe government should reduce the taxes that they are imposing on newspapers. So what court said is that newspapers are also like an industry, like any other industry, right? Any other industry, whatever benefits or things they are enjoying, newspaper is also same only. They are also doing business only. So government would impose tax on them, obviously. So they were not satisfied that taxes were too heavy, too high, or they were not even satisfied that taxes were genuine. So what basically they said is that maybe government should reconsider whatever taxes policy they are following, right? The taxation policy, maybe they should reconsider with regard to that. But it does not matter whether we have this right or not. Newspapers or other magazines or anything, they are also like industries, they are also running business only. So it's not like they are doing some kind of public service and it would be tax free or something like that. So taxes would be imposed on them. So this was also another case where before this Right to Information Act came, right? Before that also, under this cases only, it was said that we are having a right to receive information. After that only Right to Information Act came. So this case and this other one, these are related to that. Before RTI Act came, these court's decisions only were there that said that we are having a right to get information as well. So Association for Democratic Reforms versus Union of India. This was regarding the electoral process in India to become more fair, transparent, and equitable. If we need to give our vote, we should be knowing about the candidates who are there in election, right? So it was said that those people who are candidates in any kind of election, they should properly disclose all the information about them, like their criminal background or their educational qualification, their financial details, or any other information that may be important for general public to know, so that they can take a proper decision based on those things. So other than that, without disclosing this information, it was said that elections would not be fair and transparent. So in this particular case, citizens have a right to know their public functionaries, and it is also a part of freedom of speech and expression, which includes right to know. Only when we know the candidates properly, then only we would be able to express ourselves better and we would be able to take a decision. So Election Commission and High Court did not have the power to voters. So it was said that Election Commission may have some rules or regulations. They can specify that these are the things that candidates need to disclose before, in any election, before standing in any election. These are the things that they need to disclose. Maybe they need to submit these affidavits and all of that. So this was regarding Association for Democratic Reforms. These two cases, you can even remember that before RTI Act came, these were the things that were giving us this freedom. Again, the same case here also you can refer. This particular legislation was invalidated, and later on it was validated because there was a change in Article 19 Clause 6 that government can run some business in exclusion of other normal people. So this provision would be applicable for 19 Clause C also. So I'm saying that whatever cases are there, for that you can just see for Indian Kanun, the entire thing. There you would get all the different articles for which it would be relevant. So Article 21, these we have already discussed. So these things, do you want me to repeat or what?
No, ma'am.
So these we have already discussed clearly, right? Under Article 21, Menka Gandhi case. So these are also the articles where you can refer this particular case. Then Mohini Jain versus State of Karnataka, that right to education is also a part of Article 21 only. Husainara Khatun right to speedy trial and also free legal aid. So this particular case, again, see, free legal aid, it is there, right? So right to speedy trial, Article 21 also you can mention. Then again under DPSP also you can mention that we should have free legal aid and all of that. So wherever there is a relevance, try to mention the same cases only. It would be easier for you. Like by remembering like maybe 20 cases, you can refer it in like 40 different articles or things like that. So for each and every case, you can try to remember for which other articles you can refer this particular same case only. So this case you can even refer for 39A also, free legal aid. Olga Tillis versus Bombay Municipality Right to Livelihood. Then also the Sunil Batra versus Delhi Administration. So in this particular case, what happened is that it's not like a proper case. Basically, one person who was convicted under death sentence. You are not audible. What you said?
The screen was getting stuck, so I just want to write down the citation for Olga Tillis.
Or which one?
Olga Tillis.
Sunil Batra versus Delhi Administration. In this case, this person, Sunil Batra, he was convicted under death sentence, and what he did is that he wrote a letter to one of the judges of Supreme Court, and he said that one of the other prisoners there, he was like some jail authorities, they were torturing that particular prisoner. So he wrote a letter and describing all the things in detail. So that particular Supreme Court judge, he treated it as like a writ petition only, and then he took a decision, like he took that particular case, and he what they did is that court basically, they treated it like a habeas corpus proceeding, and just in order to check that whatever this person is saying is true or not, what they did is that they basically appointed some persons also, and they sent those persons to that particular prison just to go there, meet the prisoners, then ask things, what is the situation, what they are doing. Also they can see the relevant documents, other things, just to ensure that whatever this person is saying is true or not. And those persons also came to know that those statements, whatever the person has written in that particular letter, that is actually true.
Ma'am, the same case can be used for Article 32, no ma'am? PIL also we can use that same case.
Yeah, PIL also
Sunil
you can
Batra.
use. Yeah, Sunil Batra, most of these you can use only. So I'm saying that go through that, like list of articles that would help you. Like one case you can use it for like 3-4 articles. So in this case, it was held that personal liberty of a person. So personal liberty under Article 21 is there, but what is personal liberty for a prisoner? For a prisoner, it would mean liberty to move, mix, mingle, and talk with, or share company with other co-prisoners. And unjustified orders and directions of jail authorities would not be valid under Article 21. So under Article 21, jail authorities also, they were like certain guidelines were also issued that this is how they should function, this is what they should maintain, like they should maintain proper records or other things, this is what they should do, so that the prisoners are also able to express themselves. So many other like guidelines were also issued that this is how a prison should function, so that people can enjoy some kind of rights even during their stay. Also, it talks about free legal service too. Free legal services, free legal aid. So regarding free legal aid, again, you can use this particular case also, that it also spoke about free legal aid, so that prisoners are able to express their own selves. So what basically happened is that this particular like co-prisoner was harassed by the prison authorities just to extract money from that person, and the person like he had severe injuries, he was sent to the prison hospital only, and then the prison authorities, they wanted to like make up some stories just to hide the matter, that they were torturing him or things like that. So for those matters, it was said that it's very important that free legal aid is there, people know about their rights and all of that. So this also you can mention, like for free legal aid also you can refer. Telesis regarding right to livelihood. Prabhakaran Nair, right to shelter. So these just I have mentioned what all things were being held, that these also would take a part of Article 21. Right of citizens, especially in hilly areas, to require the state to provide proper roads. So these are like some of the things that are there. So if a question comes under Article 21, you can mention that Article 21 is this. It's been expanded by various court decisions, and also you can mention that also these are some of the different rights that are also being included under this particular part.
21.
Again, DK Basu also, it was also a letter that was sent that was treated as a writ petition, and accordingly decision was taken. 11 guidelines were issued that we discussed. So these guidelines, you can just read this part, whatever is in bold, that you can just mention that case diary should be maintained, they should be informed about grounds, they should be presented before magistrate and all of that. Article 25 also, these cases we have discussed, right? Hanif Qureshi versus State of Bihar. So this case again you can mention for Article 15, 19, 1G, 25. Again, same Bijoy Manuel cases coming.
That can come for religion also, right?
Which one?
Bijoy in manual case.
How come due diligence?
No, ma'am, not due diligence. I was just saying that like we have so many cases which can be used in different parts.
Yeah, different cases.
So
yeah, that
if,
only.
for example, yeah, we can use this case for Article 25 also. That's what I was saying.
Yeah, Article 25. Yeah, this is under Article 25 only I have mentioned, and somewhere else like 19 also I have put this thing. So this is Article 15 or 19 also, 25 also. So it's better that you use the same cases, but because like for fundamental rights, take for example, they would not ask you for all the fundamental rights, right? Maybe one question would come. So if you know the like these same cases only, you can put there. It's not like you need to like like the different cases. So one case you can use for 3-4 different articles. That is the best thing about it. Or I will try to do one thing, like when I share this document, right here only I would try to mention all the different articles for which you can refer this case also, so it would be easier for you. Accordingly you can refer this case. So this also we have discussed Ramji Lal Modi regarding that magazine Gomata. Then SR Bomai versus Union of India, there also regarding secularism they spoke, right, that if secularism is a basic feature and it is like expected from government, same is expected even from the government like authorities, representatives and all of that. Then regarding Article 39, State of Punjab, this also we have discussed. So this is again part 4 of the constitution also, you can use for equal pay for equal work. 39A, Hussain-Ara Khatun. So Hussain-Ara Khatun also we discussed in part 3 also, right? Article 21 also, again you can discuss it for free legal aid. So this is like the entire thing what happened. From here you can like pick whatever you want to write. Maybe you can write that this was how this case was filed, why this case was filed, what was basically held. So like that 2-3 things you can write. So Sunil Batra versus Delhi administration. Okay, this case also we discussed, right, just now. So again, same, only for free legal aid you can discuss. For Article 21 also you can discuss. Then Mohini Jain versus State of Karnataka, right to education. That also it was said it's a part of Article 21. Right to education is a part of Article 21. Again, Article 41 also you can use this thing. Same with Hanif Qureshi, Article 48A also, state is having this right that they should, like, duty to protect all these animals and all of that. So for that also you can use. So these same cases only you can repeat in all of that thing. Article 49 MC Mehta case, that also we have discussed regarding discoloration of Taj. Article 51 AG, again same case is coming, national anthem case. This also Muhammad Hanif Qureshi. Okay. Now Article 51A clause G. Okay. Article 51 clause G, that, one second, I'll share this.
What does it talk about?
This is regarding fundamental duties, regarding like we are having this duty to protect our like rivers, forests, wildlife and all of that. So citizens are having this particular duty that they should protect all of that. So this is MC Mehta versus Union of India. In this particular case, Supreme Court, what they said is that under Article 51AG, we are having this duty, right? People, to citizens of India, this duty has been imposed that we should be protecting our forests, lakes, rivers, wildlife, etc. But in order to, like inbuild this particular habit, how we will develop this particular habit of protecting all of that. So some, like some lessons should be introduced in like school level only, first 10 classes, like from class 1 to 10, there should be some kind of like syllabus or some kind of extra like subject or something should be given where they are talking about protection of environment and all. So we also had some like one subject also we had, right? In schools we had one subject where that was like for 50 marks or something, I guess. We had to prepare projects, we need to go visit rivers and all, take pictures, how it's been polluted and all of that. Why that is being done? So that children from like school age only, they know about the importance of all of this and they can develop it. So in this particular case, it was said that from school level only this should be like introduced to like children so that they develop it and then they can do accordingly. So this also you can refer for 51. So these are few things that you can refer even for article like 51. So take for example, one question is there regarding like write a note on the fundamental duties. So there also you can mention that these are the 11 fundamental duties we have. And in order to ensure that these duties are fulfilled and these duties are like properly followed by citizens, these are some things that court, like like judiciary has like maybe provided guidelines or things like that. The judiciary has taken an action just to ensure that people follow or fulfill these particular duties that are being imposed on them. So these are few cases with regard to fundamental duties. Then with regard to judiciary, we already saw, right, 3 judges case and then the 4th one. So first judges case, SP Gupta versus Union of India, 1982. Basically, there were a lot of different writ petitions filed in different high courts in India. It was regarding maybe transfer of judges and many other things. So what Supreme Court felt is that already many many cases are pending in different high courts. So they transferred all of that under Article 139. So you can even mention this case under Article 139 if you are talking about jurisdiction of Supreme Court, that Supreme Court can even transfer certain cases to it. So Supreme Court transferred this matter and they said that consultation that we are talking about, so consultation does not mean concurrence, and it is not, ultimate power is vested on president only. So consultation is only like a formality that president need to take consult with Chief Justice of India, but it is not like binding on him. President only would take the ultimate decision.
These cases are known as like first judge, second judge and all
Yeah.
like that.
Yeah, first judge, second judge's case, third judge's case, and then the last one that we have. So these are even there when we discuss that judiciary part. There also we have discussed these cases. So you can refer it in both the things. Also, this first judge's case, you can even mention it if you are discussing the jurisdiction of Supreme Court. So maybe you can mention that under this particular case, this is what happened. Bijoy Manuel case, it was, I guess, special leave petition. So there you can mention that it was special leave petition. The person did not get permission from High Court or the certificate from High Court. So accordingly, it was done. So like that, make use of these cases in 2-3 different articles. So second judge's case, it was again said regarding independence of judiciary also. Again, for Article 50 also you can use that. In second judge's case, it was said that under like fundamental duties, we have the concept of independence of judiciary. So it was said that opinion of Chief Justice would be primary in this particular case. His opinion would have some importance. It's not only about formality. Collegium system was also introduced. Then third judge's case came. So in this case also, again, second judge's thing was only upheld, but only thing is that the number of judges was like increased. It was made 4 senior most judges along with the Chief Justice of India. Then the constitutional amendment came regarding National Judicial Appointment Commission. And then again, it was like said in the fourth judge's case, it was said that this is not valid. We should have independence of judiciary. It is hampering independence of judiciary. So again, we will go back to the same process of collegium system where judiciary would be independent. So opinion of Chief Justice must be formed after due consultation with collegium system of at least 4 senior most judges of Supreme Court. So those you can refer even for the jurisdiction part also and the appointment also. Then for emergency also, these are the cases. So first case, this we discussed yesterday only, right? That these cases, the person will not have any right to file a case of habeas corpus also if he has been arrested under some kind of preventive laws. Minerva Mills case also, SR Bomai also with regard to emergency. So these are with regard to amendment of constitution. Golaknath case. Kesavananda Bharti case. Okay, so these are the basic structure that are being held, the list that you can refer. Indira Nehru Gandhi, these are the lists that were mentioned. And Minerva Mills case. Okay, so these cases we have already. So any case that you want to discuss or repeat?
Can we discuss the Mohini Jain case now?
Okay. Mohini Jain versus State of Karnataka, it was held that right to education also forms a part of Article 21 only. Article 21 would not mean just mere animal existence. We would also have right to education. So basically, she was a medical aspirant from Uttar Pradesh, and she filed a petition to the Supreme Court challenging some notification that was issued by government of Karnataka. Under this notification of government of Karnataka, what happened is that medical colleges of Karnataka, they were permitted to Karnataka to charge capitation fees. So capitation fees refers to illegal transaction in which an organization to provide educational services to collect high fees then approved by regulatory norms. So basically under like some regulations, if a fees has been fixed, right? For example, like 2 lakhs would be the fees. But what they can do is that they can charge more also under some, like for these particular seats, we would be charging more also. So under this particular notification, basically private medical colleges were allowed to charge more also. So because she was a medical aspirant, she challenged this particular notification that if we are having this particular right to get education, also education should be affordable to the normal people. It's not like private universities or private colleges are charging like too much for those kind of like technical or those education, medical education, they should not be charging that. So in absence of an express fundamental right, the court interpreted right to education as a necessary part of Article 21 of Constitution. Private institutions acting as agent of the state and have duty to ensure equality, equal access to and non-discrimination delivery of higher education. So private educations also, when they are like giving this kind of education, what they are doing is that they are also like acting as an agent of government only, because we are having limited number of government medical colleges. So if private colleges are also providing same kind of education, what they are doing is that they are basically making the job of a state easy. So they are also having a duty that they should like ensure that it is affordable for all. It's not like they are charging a fees which is like too high and without any justification why that much fees is being charged. So there should be a proper regulation with regard to that also. So whether right to education is guaranteed to Indian citizens or not, that was one question that was raised in this particular case. And Supreme Court said that life and personal liberty would automatically imply some other rights also, which would be necessary for in order to make our life better, right? So for example, for full development of personality, some other rights may be necessary in order to enjoy our lives better, or in order to have some kind of liberties, we would need some other things also. So those also would be included. And education is also one of the main important factors that is needed for development of individuals. So it is also a part of 21 only, and it should not be something that is not accessible to the common public. It should not be like that.
But I doubt it is followed, ma'am, because no offense.
Yes.
But even I'm not from Karnataka, but when I joined any college here, obviously I paid extra because I'm not from the same state. So
Also, like throughout the year, they would take admission. If you are taking admission late, means you need to pay like extra. And also, I guess for medical thing, they need to submit an affidavit, right? That like while taking admission only, even if you leave in between, like second year, third year, whenever you leave,
you have to
you
pay
need to pay entire fee. So that also is like,
yeah, it was there in my college also.
like for law also they are doing that.
Yes, ma'am. For both my undergraduates and postgraduates, both, as I was not from Karnataka state, I paid extra.
Okay. That is what. Which college?
It's leave, ma'am. I should not take the college name.
Yeah. But yeah, they do that.
Yes, ma'am. And it's like not a small amount of difference. Difference goes like around 5 to 10,000 or even more.
Okay. Just for like being from other state, is it?
Yes, ma'am. Just because 10-12 is done from other state, not from Karnataka.
Okay. Different rules they have.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. Okay, so these cases, so I will try to like write the different articles also for which you can refer these articles, refer these cases, and then I will share this. So any other article for which you need case, like these were the important ones for which I have mentioned.
I just wanted, because the latest topic is on 377. So I think it was also just 1 minute, ma'am. I'll just tell. So can we discuss something on Supreme Court discrimination on this the case Navteej Singh case, because I think it is also added somewhere in Constitution also, right to life. I think 21 also, ma'am. Yeah, 21, 19, and 14. So can we discuss the section 377 of IPC relating to Constitution, and also as privacy is also added to Article 21. So these two things we can do. And
okay, so
these two are like the latest topics.
So Article 37, Section 377, whatever cases are there with regard to like Constitution also, right? Like 21, 14, whatever it may be, 19. Okay.
Yeah, like I'll give the example, like Navteej Singh case, ma'am. It talks about as the section 371 was known as, it is So few articles are also related to that, like 14, 19, 21.
Yeah.
So how they were like, you know, how they were violated. So in that regard, we can discuss this case and like right to privacy case, which comes from KS Puttaswamy case.
Okay. 1 second, I'll just write it. For right to privacy, only the case or what you need?
Ma'am, just right to as like, you know, reason or reason behind why why privacy was also added under Article 21 and what makes it to also count as it should be also a right or like, you know, something protected under Constitution.
Okay. Okay. 77. Okay, fine. Then so these two things and those remaining questions that were there, right, in the sheet that you shared. Anything else? So
Yes.
that part, Saturday, are you guys free?
Yes, ma'am. But I think Saturday I'll just check. I think yes, ma'am. There is no class on Saturday. We can have a class on Saturday.
Okay, like around 3 o'clock, is it fine?
If everyone, no
Can
problem,
we
ma'am. Others
manage
should
by
just
1, 12 or 1? If not,
12 or 1. I think I have something like around 1:15. 1:20, is it fine?
yeah, ma'am. 1:30 is fine. 1:20, 1:30 is fine.
Okay. So fine, then we will do one thing like Saturday. Okay, so Saturday like around 1:20. We will discuss these two things and the remaining questions, okay?
Yes, ma'am. Even in case you want to like keep in the morning also, like I don't think people will have any problem.
yes,
Morning.
and we can take in morning also. No issues.
Morning.
Like if you have work,
Yeah, I have
second half,
office
then
actually, half day.
okay. Okay, ma'am. Then we can do from 1:20.
1:30 is fine, ma'am.
1:30 is fine, right? Okay, fine. Then so this Saturday, 1:30 we will do. Anything else? Because I think like that would be last class. Like we have covered all the things. So if you have anything, you can tell. The cases, Puttaswamy case and privacy in general, 377. Anything else?
As of now, I don't think if I have like if personally I'll text you, ma'am.
Yeah.
Not a problem.
So,
I don't know about others.
Fine then, short. And this Saturday, 1:30, we will discuss that remaining parts. Okay.
Okay,
Okay,
ma'am.
ma'am.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Ma'am, about that list of amendments, ma'am, you said like
List of amendments. Yeah, like whatever I discussed yesterday, that thing only. In that list only, I will put 2 or 3 more and then share that list with you, like that document with
yes,
you.
ma'am.
Yesterday's thing.
Okay, ma'am.
Yeah.
Okay, ma'am.
Okay, ma'am.
Okay then. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, ma'am. Good night.